Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Piqued, the meetup for electronic music makers. I'm your host, Corey Luna, and tonight we have a special show where we'll be interviewing a group uh, of wonderful electronic music artists that were all part of the Modular Alliance vinyl record. And just so you all know, if you haven't tuned into Piqued before, Piqued is a meetup for electronic music makers, if I haven't said so already. And we're very excited for our number 36 episode with the Modular Alliance vinyl record album. It's not quite a review, but more of a listening party release party. That's more appropriate. It is September 21st, Wednesday, 2022, and it is 7 p.m. on Pacific Standard Time. We should be wrapping up by 9 o'clock. We've got 8 artists to go through today. We'll be talking with Kizzle, Alpha Stare, Wabi Sabi, Malarkey, Frank Martin, Tanuki Spider-Cat, Clark Harding, and Need for Storms. Not everybody is in the same time frame throughout the world here, but we're all relatively pretty close, I think, within 2 to 3 hours of each other, so hopefully no one is going to be too late to bed. And it's going to be an interesting show, as we've never done so many artists in one show before. But it should be also rather brief. We're going to listen to everybody's track individually from start to finish, and then we'll have that respective artist come on to stream with us. We'll talk. I'll ask some questions. If you have any questions for the artist about their music, about the track, about how they designed it, how they composed it, please let us know in the chat, and we'll do our best to field that question. So there will be no real particular order, even though there is a order on the record. And if you're curious to know where to get that record, you can go to modularalliance.bandcamp.com, and you can get yourself a copy, either digital or the full vinyl as well, if you like. Pretty amazing. And we'll probably discuss a little bit about how we got that all together, as it was a wonderful collaboration of artists that all came together during the beginning of COVID. As I'll give you a little background, Modular Alliance started in late 2019 with the idea from Clark Harding, and he came to a few of us in the electronic music scene in the Bay Area, asked a few of us, and Frank Martin and myself said yes, we'd love to help and get this launched out. And Modular Alliance is a registered non-profit 501c3 in the state of California, and our mission is to promote and educate electronic music to everybody that we can. Originally, we had some fun ideas of going to Burning Man with a setup that Clark had designed to do live performances and invite the audience members to come up and try out modular synthesizers themselves. Of course, it didn't happen. So as a alternative idea, we came up with the first vinyl release from Modular Alliance, which is the compilation we get to enjoy tonight. So we've got some videos that Rich and I have prepared to accompany everybody's music. Some of it is from that I've put together, some of it Rich put together, and we'll see how that goes, as there's been some fun uploading between today and last night, and so we'll see how it goes. But it should be fun. Nothing is too refined, but it should be fun. So, Rich, when you're ready, let's go ahead and roll the first track tonight, which will be Kizzle. And then we'll talk, and then someone will ask me questions, or I might have to talk to myself in the third person to find out how I put it together. We shall see. All right. So that was my track. And it was, oh, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so Kizor, who are you?
My name, my name is Corey Luna. I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, and I have an affinity for playing with synthesizers where I can twist the knobs. Not so much of a pulling the strings.
What type of equipment did you use for this track, Corey?
Good question, Dave. So there's a combination of. I started out using Eurorack modules, a small Eurorack setup at the start. Back then, I was probably using maybe a 84 HP at the most for that, and a couple of here. At that time, I was probably using Renee as my main sequencer, and probably the Waldorf NW1 wavetable as one of my main voices. And from there, I actually used a combination of a few things besides the modular. I also used the Sensel Morph as my control, like my MIDI controller, and used Arturia, what was it? Bookla 5 app. So I'm actually using a soft synth in there for a little bit of it. So that is the Bookla 5 you're hearing here and there between it, mostly for those arpeggiated notes. And I think that's mostly what I used. I'm trying to remember, granted, it has been 2 years since we all wrote our tracks. I know that I did and I know that I went in going with the idea of putting together uh, what was available to me and not wanting to abstain from using too much technology, but rather to wanting to embrace everything that I could. That was and for me, that was my first approach to it, was to combine hardware and software together to make one solid composition where you really don't know where one ends and one begins.
In what genre would you qualify this music? What's the inspiration?
Mm. Dystopia, I'd say, is like a very big inspiration for me. Granted, I composed it during COVID, which was probably one of the most influential dystopian realities I could ever imagine in real life. That was pretty neat, and I think it was around that time the we had some fires here in North America where the sky really was red and orange from all the ash in the sky. So, and those of you who were here at that time in California, in Northern California, witnessed how strange it was outside for it to be COVID and also to have orange skies day and night.
There's a question
And
from Lemel Williams. What's the significance of the title of the piece?
resuscitation, yes. Well, it also relates to it being COVID and the idea of and the fires happening the same simultaneously, where we've got death all around us, not just human but also plant life burning, and things just going completely awry in reality. But there is also continued life. It's not the end of the world. It seemed like an apocalypse, but we've all, you know, even though it looked dim, I knew that we would survive. A lot, many of us would continue on. Life would go on. People have a drive for hope and want things to get back to normality, which is not easy to define, as everyone has their own definition of what normal is.
We have a question from the audience that this is a very peaceful aspect to it, almost soothing. Are there parts for you that are like that in this piece?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a very good perspective, as I try to find a lot of my compositions, as my friends know, have been rather chaotic. I think some of my earlier compositions have been described as noise, and and that's really something that I struggle with as a musician, where I like to compose. I try to compose more melody, but I really create a lot of chaos with the music that I write, or even if I'm performing live and it's improvised, a lot of it sounds very chaotic and industrial. Granted, I am very much influenced by industrial music, very much from the 80s, but I try to control the chaos that is constantly around me and constantly conflicting my own thoughts, as I do have a lot of that in my life, and I try to control it so it's not all chaos, because I want there to be cohesion and melody and serenity. And that, to me, is a personal struggle within my life and also within how I convey my music. And I believe that 42 has been established as the answer. So maybe I think we can continue on to our next artist. So our next artist tonight, we're going to go straight to Alpha Stare. And he's on with us tonight. He's the man with the wonderful specs. And we're going to have a listen to his song tonight. And then we'll come back and ask some questions. Rich, please cue up Alpha Stare. All right.
Bravo, bravo. Forgot to do the
That was
clap.
fantastic. That was really good. So, Jeff,
Yo.
tell us about your track, man. That was really fun.
I was trying to remember what I was working with back then because it was a while ago. We were just talking about that. And I haven't really listened to it since we listened to the test pressing back whenever that was. So,
Yeah, it's been a while.
yeah, it's been a minute. But it's fairly sparse. It's really just based around that, the rhythms, which are, if I remember correctly, the tom type stuff is from the T-Nets module from ADDAC primarily. And then I wasn't really too deep into drums at the time, so I wasn't really like working up the beat that hard. It was just kind of probably just the hats and stuff from the LDB drums and something real basic, just kind of going there. And then I was just having fun riding that little knob on the 2HP tune, on an oscillator. I don't even remember what oscillator I used, but that's what all that lead stuff was. I had like a few takes of that stuff that I was just kind of interweaving in between. And then at the top of the track, you can kind of hear some radio static that was just feathered in from the I have a field kit here, and I think I just tuned in whatever was going on at the time, and it was some kind of gruesome stuff happening. Like if you listen closely, there's two different radio things going on each side, different people talking, and it's just kind of stuff that was happening then. Like one was like a report about a police car dragging a woman down the street a couple blocks, like a black woman on the hood of the car, cop car. This is also obviously during that period of the pandemic. We touched on the fires and stuff and COVID and whatnot, but that was also like a heavy time of all the Black Lives Matter action and stuff like that, and political activism and Trumpism and all that bullshit. And so that was kind of like interesting to have that also as a kind of the entertainment for the time. We were like all locked up, we're just like kind of forced to like watch all this kind of unraveling of our our fundamental society essentially. So that was kind of what was going on. Forward to Oblivion, the title pretty much says it all. Sort of like a juxtaposition, like supposedly we're progressive and moving in some direction, and some forward direction apparently, or supposedly, or allegedly, but at the same time it's like the end destination seems to be more and more of just like a real dark sort of void of a place. Which isn't very forward, thing. I mean, there's also obviously progress and forward thinking people out there and things happening in other spaces besides, politics and like social shit. It's like there is interesting stuff happening in other places, like musically, obviously. And there was that pocket of people that developed also during the pandemic, from that soup came, all of these people that just got into modular synthesizers and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there were a few of us who were already kind of into it for a little while beforehand, and we're just kind of starting to make some noise. The pandemic really just like, the stimmies came in and the reverb was just going crazy, and
So, Jeff, would you say that all the chaos that was happening in the world at the time inspired your track?
I mean, it's seeped into it. Obviously, I think anything I do kind of is just reflects like what's going on around me at the time. I think in general, that's how I try to work. Just be a filter for information, I suppose. A vessel and a tuning fork or something. A receiver.
No, definitely.
Transmitter.
Yeah, I think a lot of us operate like that. Of something happens to us personally, or something happens in the world, and our musical endeavors tend to be a reaction and reflect our emotions towards that.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it kind of took me right back there too. Maybe I haven't listened to it in a while because of that. It does take me back to a little bit of a weird place. And I do remember that orange day that we had. That was just so surreal and sort of David Lynchian. And yeah, that was kind of like just a wild time. you know, against the backdrop of all the other kind of stuff going on politically and socially and with the pandemic and everything like that, you know.
Absolutely. I can definitely feel it
And we
from your
managed
track.
to eke out this this project during that somehow. So something came out of it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think our you and I personally, and all of us as a group, really came together better over this time. I know it's definitely still been hard, but the fact that we were all friends before it happened, and we've all been able to maintain our friendship throughout, and been able to reconnect with each other, here and there, either online or in person, as things have opened up again. We've all been able to gotten together again to perform and support each other. I think has been a wonderful thing.
Indeed, I agree. It was cool seeing you guys the other day. A lot's going on now, also around, excuse me, around Mission Sense, you know. So that's really cool. Got to give those guys a shout out as they also are carrying the album here in San Francisco. But that spot has created like a cool little hub, you know, which is I think something that we really needed outside of the sign up events or what have you, you know, which are also really cool. But having a place to go during the day and just kind of mess around with modules and talk shop and catch up with other people in a spot that, you know, where you can have events and workshops and, you know, I think that sort of thing is like really needed right now, because back during the pandemic, all we had was, you know, the YouTube videos and the million Discord chat gear channels, you know, that were just like always on fire and kind of still are, I think, probably. But you know, that was kind of how people connected. It was just like demystifying the gear, trying to figure out what does what, why people use certain things or what they get out of certain things, because it's kind of hard to test stuff, you know. It's expensive to try and go buy a module and just to try it out or whatever, maybe like it or maybe not. You can't really do that, you know, $500 a pop or what have you, you know. So all the knowledge you can glean from YouTube videos, and sometimes there aren't YouTube videos and you just got to ask questions, and before you know it, you're making friends and talking to people and doing streams and setting up shows, and you know.
You're right, and thanks
Not
for bringing
record.
up Mission Since, Jeff. It's very, very important. How central they've really become to the San Francisco scene, and bringing a lot of people together, and how open they are to having so many variety of electronic musicians come together and perform there. Not just electronic musicians, but also DJs have also done different sets there as well. And I think it's really wonderful that Brian and Betsy were able to find a space for, I don't know how much they're paying for it, but from what I understand, they got a reasonable price for the rent there in that location, and for them to open up during 2020, late 2020, is really a wonderful thing. And
I was gonna say too, they did open up, right? I think it was during the pandemic too. They were sort of just throwing it to the wind, you know. I think that was yeah, honorable.
I think it was because of the pandemic that they were able to get a space.
That too. There was a kind of a confluence of things, yeah, indeed. But also sort of kind of not, you know, it's just kind of scary. You know? Good
Yeah,
deal or not to like just open up a business like that in the middle of there wasn't really any end in sight to it at the time. I think that they opened, it was maybe a good halfway through it or something, maybe even. So yeah, kudos to them. And they were doing, I think, deliveries and stuff beforehand, and then
wow.
like the handoff out front because everything was kind of still half, you know, half open for a while, and so they toughed that part of it out. But now it's full on, man. Now it's a rager.
Yeah, man, it's pretty amazing. Like just was it Friday night, Saturday night? We were all there.
Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah,
Or no, Sunday. Sorry, Sunday.
Sunday.
Right?
Thank you.
Was it Sunday? Malarkey was there. I think
They were
he was there.
I know well.
You might know the day, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. But yeah, that was really wonderful to get us all together, and it was surreal because Brian was concerned about how loud it was going to get, and then there just happened to be like a festival outside on the street that was louder outside than inside.
Yeah, the ginormous Mexican Day Independence Day parade festival / street fair, and then the alley directly across the street from the store with the
Had
guy with
fireworks
the
in it.
booth. Yeah, the guy with the booth right out front, and a couple booths right out in front, and the DJ directly across the street spinning those crackly 45s, those low rider oldies, you know, hella loud, blasting right in through the front door of the
Oh,
shop.
God.
It all worked out though. It all balanced out, I think, pretty nicely.
It did.
And it was cool having that vibe in the background, you know, like having those guys doing the tribal ceremonial dance outside for a minute during the, you know, the middle of it all, and then walking, and all the low riders just cruising by, bouncing, you know, the motorcycle dudes and the, yeah.
It's
It was all
yeah,
culture right there on 24th Street, you know.
It really was. That was amazing. Like all the culture right there, and everybody fit in. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, that was dope. That was very San Francisco.
Yeah.
Very San Francisco moment right there.
You're right. It's a very San Francisco moment right there. Well, Jeff, thanks for coming on tonight, talking about your track a little bit tonight. And
Right on.
we're gonna jump over to our next artist today. We're gonna go over to Frank Martin and see what's going on with. We're gonna have a listen to his song, and then we'll come back and ask some hard-hitting questions to Frank Martin. So, Rich, please cue up Frank Martin's track. Pardon everybody. That was fantastic. And yes, no one expects the French execution.
Yes.
So Frank, we've got some questions.
All right, I've got answers.
All right, thank you. First of all, we would like to know, who are you?
So I'm Frank Martin, or Frank Martin, is the way it works. Originally from France. I lived 20 years in Fiji, and that's about 10 years now I'm in California. And it's when coming to California that I started to get into modular synthesizer and make electronic music. And before I was listening a lot to electronic music.
And
Frank, did a buchla have anything to do with that piece that you just played?
Yes, indeed. I'm trying to remember how I did it, but yes, I think the main sound was coming from the 208C that had pushed through quadraphonic. So the piece was made in quadraphonic, and I binauralized it.
did you use any panning technique in this composition?
Yeah, that's why I call it. It's spinning around me because it's all. I've got several modules to pan all around, use the sound. So, but it was straightforward. It's like circular motion mainly.
And
I don't
how
remember
did you?
if I. Yeah, I don't remember if at that time I had the aeroseed that allow you to do different kind of panning. I had the poltergeist mainly.
Very cool. Frank, how did you prepare for recording your track for this album?
Well, I've got everything plugged. I've got 4-output interface coming into my audio interface and coming into my DAW. I use Logic Pro, so usually rehearse a couple of times, and when I'm about right, then I do a take. Usually it takes, and it was a short one, so it's less complicated than to do a 20-minute or 30-minute take. So it's really easy to retry till you get it right.
And what were some? So you say that it's all spinning around you, and that's part of how you compose the track. As I think a lot of us know that you are very much into quadraphonic sound, and your setup is designed for quadraphonic. And your most recent couple of releases have been in Dolby Atmos.
Yes,
right?
indeed. So, in music, there's several ways to do a separate sound. You can separate it in timing. So, you got a sound that happens after the other, so they're separated. You don't hear them at the same time. When you've got two sounds at the same time, then you can separate them by the frequency. So you use an EQ to make some room for another sound. And the other one is to separate it in the space, like in the stereo field. So you can put one on the left and one on the right, so they're well separated. When you've got quadraphonic, then you've got 4 separation. But also electronic music allow you to break all the standard about where sound should be placed. You don't need deal with the bands, so it's, for me, it's very interesting to make the sound move around the person. And I try to reproduce that. So I record in quadraphonic, and then I usually make a binaural version of it, not a stereo version, but a binaural version. So it give a little bit more an effect of space if you listen to it on headphone, which many people do. Recently, I've released some album in Dolby Atmos spatial audio. So if you've got the right equipment and you're on Apple Music or Tidal, you get the full the full quadraphonic or spatial audio experience, and you don't need much, just a bunch of AirPods.
A bunch of AirPods.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah. Also, I think Lenny was asking, if I do that in software or in module. No, I've got modules. I got one of the last Poltergeist, which was 4-voice quadraphonic, and then I moved to Shackmat, Aelos, Seed, and Mixer. The Aelos Seed is a very good module, and there's and since then there's a new one module also that is a little bit simpler and that's good for voice. And I see many more modular synth people going quadraphonic. So hopefully I'm getting everybody to follow that trends.
I think I think you've been very much a big influence and a proponent in quadraphonic and Dolby Atmos, and I can speak personally from when you mixed my last album, and it was quite a privilege to go to your studio and do a little bit of the mixing one-on-one with you, which was a real treat for me because you were showing me some technology that I had never used before. And it was, to me, it was a wonderful learning experience to be hands-on with you and seeing how you are making these spatial arrangements. It was really fascinating to see.
Well,
You know,
thank you. Yeah, it was a I don't know, privilege to mix or master your album, more mastering than mixing, in fact. But it was nice also for you to be here because I don't know the music language, so I don't know how to express. This is muddy. Muddy has a meaning, and I don't understand yet the meaning. But we were here, and then we were able to directly interact with the music and give it some try. Let's bump this frequency, or it's too low in the low hand, and get quickly the feedback.
Yeah, it was such a treat. It really was.
And as for quadraphonic, I tell people I can talk about quadraphonic or spatial audio, but the best way is to come and experience it, and then it's an experience, so it's hard to convey. You need to experience it, and then after you say, okay, that's what I want to do.
That was very cool. Frank, thank you again so much for being part of the Modular Alliance and being a contributing artist, being a wonderful mastering engineer, and it's always good to see you and Jasmine.
And before we leave, just wanted to say Coyote and I and Justin are organizing a resident, and it's tomorrow at Noise Bridge. So if you want to meet some of us, join us there.
Yes, and that's in San Francisco, right?
Correct. In the
Excellent.
Mission District.
And it's from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. tomorrow night?
Yeah, roughly.
Roughly.
Yeah, 8 p.m. That's the start. And then the end depends on how many people we will have.
And for those of you who cannot attend physically, you can watch the show on YouTube at, is it Coyote Hearing, I believe?
Yes, on Coyote Hearing Studio that used to be a Jeremy Black original channel, and we didn't move it because all the archives are there of all the Resident Electronic Monthly.
That's right. And that goes back, started in, was it 2018? When Resident started?
Yeah, I think around that time. That's like 5 years we've been doing that. And Resident Electronic Monthly and Resonant Frequencies started at the same time, 2 different locations, one in San Francisco, one in Oakland, and both have been going on. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful community builder for all of us.
Yeah. And also it's cool because we go to perform at each other. I don't perform at Resident because don't have the time. I have to wrangle everything, so I go perform at Resonant, and I know the Resonant Frequency people are coming to perform at Resident. So that's been a good outlet.
It always is. It's always wonderful to be a part of it, whether we be performers, organizers, or just an audience member.
Yeah, we need audience member.
Yes, we need more audience members. So if you know anyone who is interested in checking it out, please tell them to go check out Noise Bridge tomorrow at 8 p.m. for Resident Electronic Monthly. It's always a good show. We always have really good visual artists too.
Yes, we are starting to get the visual artists. We started audio because we already started in a new space, and now we're starting to get more and more visual artists.
Excellent. Oh, I'm always happy to see.
And photographer and videographer are most welcome. Also painters. Also, if you want to paint while people are performing, you're most welcome. So all the arts are welcome to interact with the music.
Now that would be fun to see. I haven't seen anyone do any live painting yet. That would be cool. I'm starting to think of like, here's the I wonder if there's someone who like paints like trials for a living. If they'd be interested in coming to a show and painting some sets. That would be fun.
Yeah, I saw it once at was it the library? I forgot. But Arushi Jain had a friend that was painting while she was performing. That was quite nice.
Wow, that'd be fun to see. I hope that happens again. I would love to see that. That would be really fun.
Yes.
Well, Frank, thank you so much. Let's jump on over to Dorian Gunnels, and we're gonna go listen to Dorian's track, who is "Need for Storms." I believe he's number 5 on the album, but he's coming up a little sooner tonight, as I don't want to keep him up too late tonight. So, Rich, please cue up Dorian Gunnels' track, "Need for Storms." Dorian, what a wonderful track that you there's so much going on in there, and with such a minimal amount of at the same time.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Yeah, things are just still pandemicing. Is that over yet? I don't know. I keep hearing it's over. So
Hard to say. For some people, yeah, it's over. A lot of people, it's not over.
yeah,
Cases are still happening, but I think the flu is still taking more people out than COVID nowadays.
I guess maybe at this point.
Possibly. But let's
Yeah,
get back
it's
to
crazy listening to that track. Like I haven't actually listened to it. I'm kind of with Jeff. It's like I haven't listened to it in. I mean, it's been at least a year now, right? So
I think we
I'm
all
kind of
wrote
thinking
those
back a
tracks
little.
like over 2 years ago now.
2 years. Oh, that is how math works.
Yeah, it was 2020, man. And that was when we really put this all together and did our compositions, got them submitted.
Yeah, it
So
seemed like. Oh, sorry.
tell us about your composition and what you used to write it. Tell us about your inspiration.
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think I was really inspired by much other than I just wanted to make something really big sounding. Because normally the way I'd performed and all this is like, I'd throw drums in there and I'd have different parts and different oscillators that would kind of, fade in and out, and I'd sequence the hell out of everything. This time I just wanted to kind of keep the composition itself really simple and let the performance be like playing a pad, like evolving that pad. And so I threw a lot at it. So I have a spherical wavetable oscillator, or the Navigator, the Swan thing, which is 6 oscillators. Then I also threw in a couple others. I think I'm looking at my setup over here trying to remember it. Like a Platz and a harmonic oscillator from New Systems. And
Instruments.
I think that's 8 oscillators total.
Wow.
And just kind of tuned them. And then the way that I played it, because I don't actually have a keyboard, I used a voltage block and I just kind of tuned everything. And so you get 16 notes. It doesn't have to be chromatic or anything like that. You just got, okay, cool, 16 pre-programmed, settings. And I just didn't have it cycling through. So it was technically a sequencer, but, played it more like a keyboard. And then the rest of it was just kind of spinning knobs around and getting it to do fun stuff. Threw some guitar pedals at it. There's a couple, actually more than one reverb pedal in there, and I think a Therme, a Chase Bliss, which kind of gave that. I think it's technically a delay pedal, but they delay it, but then they also slow the signal down and speed it up, so it also pitch shifts in different increments, and so that's what a lot of the kind of pitchiness going on in there was.
Wow, man. Thank you for explaining that, because you've always had, every time I've seen you play live, and granted, it's been a few years since we've actually been in the same room together now.
You had short hair.
I did. Yeah, now I look like, now my mailman calls me Jesus. And you always had a really cool setup, because you always had like the Octatract and the Chase, and like Chase Bliss and some other Chase pedals going on at the same time, alongside having some Eurorack modules, and it was always unique. You always had a great mix-up, because I remember from talking with you back in like 2018, your approach was always to have pedals, some type of guitar pedals going on with your set, and that was
Yeah.
always, and I think a lot of us have gone into that idea, but I think you're one of the artists that I've seen really have a unique approach to it. Whereas I know that
I appreciate that.
and as you and I have discussed, some years ago now, that you came to synthesizers with a guitarist approach. Of your chain was always set up of how your effects would go, and even you mentioned like once in like how I had my setup in like my modular rig of like I would have certain things set up as if it was in that type of chain of like music, like oscillator to effects.
Yeah.
And that's a very much a guitarist approach on how you set up your audio performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that like I'm again looking at my setup over here, and that my performance case hasn't changed that much in the last. I mean, I'm gonna say 4 years. You know, some things have kind of come and gone, but like the general layout and kind of going out to the guitar pedals, keeping that kind of as part of the whole setup, that hasn't changed at all. There was actually something I haven't been able to really experiment with at all, but Evan from New Systems Instruments, he helped me design a pedal board that would actually, support 2 effects loops, and I would be able to hot
Wow.
swap pedals between the 2 loops. And so essentially have like, you could pretend like you have 2 oscillators running at the same time. I could have a distortion pedal literally flipping between the 2 oscillators and stuff like that. Um, yeah, and it's funny that we kind of got a little prototype built, and then pandemic happened and life happened, and then I kind of stopped making music for a little while. I think that track on the vinyl is probably the last thing I recorded so far. It's been a while.
I think you had mentioned that last time we talked, because that was the most. It was like the last thing you had composed, and you really haven't had a lot of time to really get back to music.
Yeah, I mean, it's switching jobs, and had a kid since then and all this stuff, so it tends to take time away.
Absolutely, and those are important things. And it was and you had just recently like left the Bay Area. Well, I guess maybe not quite, but was it around that time?
Yeah.
I think it wasn't around that time. Yeah, you moved out of the Bay Area.
Around then, yeah, that would have been. I mean, it's funny that I came up to Vancouver just a few months before the pandemic began.
Yeah.
So it was like I got up here, and then suddenly everything shut down. So I was thinking like, oh, I can like kind of join the community up here and kind of keep performing and all this stuff, and then everything went online, and it was so funny. Like I kept trying to put together like a streaming setup and all this, and it never landed. So I never really got into the whole streaming thing that kind of started happening, and some people were going gangbusters on it. It was great, but I never fully entered that fold.
There's a few people up in Canada that I've met virtually anyway. I don't think I've met most of them in person, that have been a really wonderful people that have a electronic music community going on. Forrestine is one of the wonderful people behind the EMS, which is I believe the Electronic Music, no, Earth Modular Society, and that's their Discord channel. Not them specifically, but rather that's like the community that they're a big part of, and out there. And I believe they're in Winnipeg. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's where they are, and they've got a wonderful connection to other wonderful electronic musicians throughout the world. And
Yeah, in Vancouver, I mean, I know that there's a really nice community up here as well. I just haven't had a whole lot of time to go out and join.
Yeah, and and I don't know if they're doing anything in person. I haven't heard anything, and granted, I'm out of the loop. I don't keep up enough with everybody.
I think it's opening up. Again, I was kind of joking about like, oh, pandemic's still on. It is, but you wouldn't know it sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, tourism is back. Definitely here in San Francisco, the tourism is back, and people are out and about as if nothing's to worry about.
Yeah.
But Dorian, I want to thank you again for coming on tonight and chatting with me. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man.
We're gonna jump over to Tanuki Spidercat, who was another wonderful artist here in the Bay Area that I've gotten to know a little bit over the years, and I just got to see her in person just over at Mission Since recently. And it was really great to see her in person again. I think it was maybe the second time, maybe the third time we've actually been in the same room together. So it's always good to see you. And she's going to jump on pretty soon. And oh, there you are. Good to see you, Colleen. And we're going to listen to your song right now. And then we're going to come back and ask you a few questions about your composition. Now, Rich, please cue up Tanuki Spider Cat. Happy Spider Cat, everybody. Pauline, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much for making the videos that go with these pieces. I've really enjoyed all the videos. It's really fun. Really fun to see.
I'm glad you like them. Thank you. Yeah, so far they've been working out. So, Colleen, tell us about the track you composed for Modular Alliance. What was your inspiration, and tell us about maybe some of the equipment that you've used.
Yeah, a little bit like Dorian, I'm kind of like looking around my room trying to figure out exactly what equipment, but I'll start with inspiration. So it's a little bit a way of remembering like a very specific night and time during COVID where I was in a place where we had to leave that place, and we had to leave along a rocky beach in the night, and you just couldn't use lights, and you kind of needed to hide out and keep going down the beach, and you were sort of just channeled between rocks and trail, and you're following the moonlight. Luckily there was a lot of moonlight. I think there's a lot of COVID inspiration here too. There's like a lot of anxiety and like needing to move and can't sit still. It's a lot of being channeled like down, and that tension between like following this outer source and inner source to get somewhere else. Moonlight to me is really also like a female feminine energy. So there's just like a lot of kind of feminine kicks, you know. So that's the inspiration. In a way, it just feels like a note to myself since nobody really knows about that. But now you do.
No, thank you. That was the. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah, no, it was like it was a great night. Yeah, it's about escaping. I'm trying to figure out exactly what drums I was using at this time, and it's a little bit hard to say for sure. Like digging through scraps here. It's all modular except for I have some cello kind of pulsing into the morphagene, driving some other aspects of the song. It's pretty different from a lot of things that I've done. I think I also probably wanted to try something different, and that there's a lot more drums than I normally use throughout a track, and there's not really any samples or vocal elements. So I think I was trying to kind of keep it more focused on the other elements. I'm thinking this WMD fracture and chimera might have been involved, and possibly this noise engineering cursus iteratas. Their names are very hard to say. Possibly that.
Oh yes, noise engineering.
It's cursus. Anyway, yes. Definitely some mutable instruments and morphagene.
That makes sense. And I want to thank you again for describing the female energy in your track and the story behind it. And I wasn't sure if that was real from your description. It really sounded like this was from an actual experience.
Yeah, it is real. It is real. I was leaving a place and I had to leave that place in under the cover of darkness. Yes.
It's frightening.
It was like kind of both frightening and not frightening at the same time, because you're in this very pristine, beautiful place, but on the other hand, it's like Oh, there's some people here and they really need us not to be here because in some way maybe we're not supposed to be here.
I definitely get anxiety for just from your composition.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, to me, a lot of what's important to me about music is kind of expressing the things that you're maybe not allowed to express in normal conversation and the feelings you're not really allowed to say. So channeling a lot of expressivity. I think that's why I'm drawn to the cello. I play piano a lot. That's kind of like my first instrument. Um, so that's kind of usually like my starting place is something that needs to get out and be expressed. And I think that my song is like kind of intentionally like very rough around the like I kind of feel like the rocks in the ocean, you know, and you're kind of like just hitting the edges. It's very raw and kind of simplistic.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of raw energy in it.
Can I cut in here real
Very
quick?
powerful. Yes, please.
I wanted to just give a little quick, just kind of shout out to Colleen. I've actually known her for a bunch of years now, kind of just like reflecting on the diversity of the the modular scene, and we're kind of like representing a certain scene here or what have you. But like we've done gigs going back maybe 7-8 years or so, and she comes from a very experimental background and has performed with a whole bunch of interesting people. So it's really cool to hear, just like all these diverse voices and backgrounds and different experiences, people coming from different places that are kind of entering this, this musical paradigm, and what they bring to it. So I just kind of want to give a little shout out there because a lot of people here are kind of new to it. Generally, most of us I mean, I'm like 5-ish years in, but I think Frank's kind of the same. But I think all of us are relatively new to this, this technology. So it's kind of like cool to see what everybody brings to it from their previous backgrounds, whether it be band stuff or whatever. I think Malarkey used to play some instruments, and I don't know that much about Dave's background, but it's cool to see other instruments come into play. And I've seen Colleen play cello at a few different gigs, which is cool to see how she integrates that with these, kind of whacked out electronics, and making those things kind of sing together is really cool. So just want to say that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I think that's one thing that's really fun about the compilation is just so many different perspectives that yeah, centering on modular. It's really fun.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for that comment. It's really wonderful to hear that experience you and Colleen have that connection. And yeah, and you're right. A lot of us have only known each other for maybe like 5 years or so, myself included. I've only really been back into the electronic music scene 4 or 5 years. Well, even though a lot of us have, our specific backgrounds in music in different areas, but a lot of us have only known each other for maybe about the past 5 years when we all started getting into the electronic music scene again in specifically in the Bay Area. And I know from my perspective is very much of didn't make any music for 10 years and then came back to it, and it's been a really wonderful positive experience performing again and again to know everybody. And
It was
yeah,
yeah. It was kind of interesting to make the jump into modular for me. Like I was kind of nudged and it was good and I'm glad the person did. I was in Tokyo and kind of resetting my whole life in a way, honestly. And my friend's like, all right, we're going to go to 5G and we're going to get you some modules and I'm going to give you a rack. Like I got you a rack to put it in. We're going to find like, a power supply and you're going to like, we're going to just start using it. And then I had some stuff, and then I was just, yeah, I needed that like nudge somehow, but it was really, yeah, it was really positive for me. If you're ever in Tokyo, go to 5G. It's a really amazing synth and modular store.
I wish I had known about it when I was there back in 2018.
Oh
That would
yeah,
have been
you can
fun.
at least people have made YouTube videos and stuff of being there because they have a lot of like vintage and non-modular vintage. They have some cool stuff. Yeah, modular pushers.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe in the next year or two, my partner and I will travel there again, because I very much want to go back to Japan and travel beyond the major cities. I have to go check out some of the more rural areas of Japan. Listen, growing
And
up watching. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
oh no, oh yeah, no finish.
Oh, I was just gonna say, growing up watching a lot of anime as a kid,
Mm.
I think Ranma One Half was a big inspiration to me and my brothers back in the '90s when we were watching that TV show by Rumiko Takahashi, and she always had a really wonderful perspective of Japanese culture, of her culture, of course, and but it was always a wonderful piece where you saw you saw aspects of the culture that I don't think are always um, well represented in in popular culture in anime, because so much of it is much more fantasy based, and a lot of her stories, Rumiko Takahashi specifically, I think a lot of her stories have been more about modern society and and the relationships that people have with each other, and and it's different compared to things that are more mainstream.
Hmm.
So it's always been a fun and to me, the experience of being in Japan and and getting to experience it firsthand it was a humbling experience.
Yeah, there's a great music scene there also, uh, and a lot of really friendly people. Yeah, so I guess I'm closing it just to say, like, it's meant a lot to be a part of. Maybe I'm like a more shy part of the community, but it means a lot to like see other people's work, know what other people are doing, and just feel encouraged by, like, feel a sense of belonging and community. So it means a lot to be on this with the rest of y'all. And thanks.
Colleen, thank you so much for joining us tonight and being a part of Modular Alliance. It's been really wonderful getting to know you over the past couple of years, all seldom as it's been, and thank you again for buying one of the Piqued T-shirts that I had made, that Jeff made. So it's always good to support Jeff. If anyone needs T-shirts, please let him know. He's got this wonderful company, Little Black Egg, and some really cool, very high quality uh, T-shirts. Really, really good screen printing, and I'm very happy with the Peak T-shirts that you made for us, and they were really spectacular. I love the T-shirts. They even printed them on as well. They're perfect.
Yeah, those were fun to print, man. I like the design.
Yeah, Rich is our main designer, and he always has a wonderful perspective on everything that he does. He does all the flyers for Peaked. He came up with the name. He's an amazing artist that not everybody knows about. And back
Shout
to
out, Rich.
and Colleen. Before we jump over to our next artist, I wanted to actually comment on your modular journey, on how it was a friend of yours that pushed you into it, or encouraged you. Maybe I should say, and I think it's a really wonderful thing that you had a friend to bring you into the journey of modular. And I think for me, that's been a really wonderful thing for being part of the community of other people who are into modular music, but also being able to bring my friend, Lenny Hamaker, who many of you know him as Aton Leon. he and I have a background in. I know him specifically from music from a long time ago, and when I got into modular, I asked him if he was interested in going on this modular journey with me, and he's been a part of it ever since. And I got to visit him a little bit ago, and we've gotten to jam a little bit, and besides get to hang out a little bit more, and it's always good to see him. He's definitely a brother to me, and he's definitely a modular brother to me too. And I think it's always a special thing to be able to have a friend to go on that journey together. So let's jump on over to Colleen. Thanks again. Nuki Spidercat, everybody. Now let's jump on over to our next artist, which we're going to go over to Patrick Coleman, who many of you know as Malarkey. And we've got him on already on video. Before we get into some conversation, let's go over to Malarkey's track that he created for Modular Alliance. Now, Rich, would you please cue up Malarkey? Well, Ark gave you one. Wow. That was strong. Oh, Patrick, how you doing? Can you hear us?
Oh, the host did not unmute me yet. So
Oh, okay.
good. How are you?
I'm okay. A little tired today, but excited.
Understandably so.
It's been a long day. But Patrick, tell us about the track you composed for Modular Alliance, and tell us about some of the technologies of equipment you used.
About the track, it's very much a coda to X7E4, which is an EP that I put out in 2020. Which, like, the backstory is like I cranked through all of the work on that, turned that in, then immediately I made this right after that. So that's why I think of it as a coda to that, because it was in the same headspace. All of that batch of music was very much a reflection on early pandemic and life throwing one thing at us after another, and none of us being prepared for any of it, and just kind of rolling through it.
Yes.
This one in specifically was about a reflection on how many people were making consciously bad decisions through their own like self willingness, even though they knew better, because people were just kind of like on autopilot. I don't want to explain the title too literally, but it does reflect on that. I see people in the chat have said things like brutal, which often comes up. I like to make music that gets performed or that can be played very loud. It's just fun. In terms of technique at the time, this was Modular Alliance comp, so I did it all on Eurorack plus one instrument that was not Eurorack. And I was playing around with trying to emulate guitar-like sounds on a synth. So it, like, the core of the second half is a carpless strong module run through a shimmer reverb, which is then run through a analog distortion, and that's kind of driving the main rhythm to the whole thing. And beyond that, I don't remember specific details, but like, I keep my system in multiple cases so I can move them around. This is what's in one of them. I don't change it up a whole lot, so there's not a whole lot different in this other than the carpless strong modules on loan to somebody else right now. Yeah. Any other questions about it?
Well, I was actually surprised in that you mostly use modular for this track, because I know from seeing you perform, I've seen you use a lot of different variety in terms of different types of technology for performance. Like, I've seen you perform with, like, well, you have maybe a standard synthesizer, but you'll also have like a Nord sometimes, and I've seen you perform, I think, with like Max MSP going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So yes, please.
Because I play so many different kinds of instruments, not just a lot electronic, but other things, when there's something that has a theme behind it, I like to stick to the theme. And if something doesn't have a theme, I usually make one up anyway, just to limit myself. And anytime that there's an event with the word modular in it, I'll just by default stick to a modular setup, and mostly Eurorack at that point, unless there's something that I want as an accent voice. This one was the Yanimoog software synth, but then, like, a track that I made at Frank's place earlier this year was Eurorack plus the Take 7, because I just wanted a basic keyboard analog voice with it. But anytime there's like, we're doing something that's themed around modular for one reason or another, I find it's just a good box to sit in for a little bit.
Definitely. How do you feel about with this composer and that idea of sitting in that box for a little bit? what is your perspective of working with modular? Do you think there's a challenge to working with modular specifically compared to using Animoog?
Anytime I sit in a Eurorack case, it feels more minimal to me. So like I can't do a lot of complex chord changes and things like that because we're built on modules that have fewer oscillators in them and sequencers that are far more limited than what you can do in even if you're just jamming on a keyboard. So from that standpoint, I think more about like repetitive structures and how to move between them. So like this track was the core progression. I think it was sequenced with probably pressure points and brains, and then I probably had like multiple voices that were counter playing each other and turning that on and off while other voices were coming through in the mix. But then like the Animoog on that's just like this complex timbre that's kind of noisy, but it's an accent that repeats throughout the track at different levels of intensity.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and hear your perspective on the music you make, because your music, as you've described, is brutal and loud, and you like to play it loud.
Yeah, and like I like doing things in themes. Like we do era grid projects that sit behind a theme. There's a new short release that's getting close to finished. That's going to be independent released sometime soon. We haven't talked much about it, but that's coming up, and that's another themed release that has a very small box that it was produced in. Or if you saw the show this past weekend at Mission Sense, that was a selection of instruments that were all acquired during the pandemic. So the theme for that one was dig into these in more depth, at least
Excellent.
for me personally, and just kind of explore them. And because I've used them in a variety of ways, but more as I'm just using this to record one part in a track. In this case, it was more, I want to look into these in more depth as performance tools.
I think it's great perspective and a really wonderful way to approach working with a minimal set and exploring how much you can push that minimal setup, and to really explore the avenues of how far you can create a musical composition with that minimal setup. And it really helps you understand the variety and the versatility that you have as your hands with a small amount of pieces to compose with.
Yeah, it also keeps me from trying too many things. I just have too many options around me.
That does tend to happen with a lot of us.
Yeah, when I'm either in jamming mode where I'm just playing around, or in learning gear mode, and that often overlaps with coming up with live performances, or I am recording music to be released mode. And like when I'm there, it's all about just creating tracks and the way that I want them to sound. So I'm not digging into things quite as deeply.
Definitely. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on tonight and being part of Modular Alliance. And I'm always looking forward to hearing the next piece you're going to release and seeing you live again.
Cool. Pay attention.
And, I will. And my girlfriend is still a big fan of you.
There's a couple things announcing soonish.
Looking forward to hearing them. Thank you so much. And we're going to jump on over to our friend in Washington, Dave Pollen, who many of you know him as Wabi Sabi. And we're going to, before we get into our conversation with Dave, we're going to play his track, and then we'll ask him some questions about it. Rich, please cue up Wabi Sabi. Wabi sabi, everybody. I think we all enjoyed the wonderful spatial atmosphere of that composition. And Dave, how you doing?
Good, Corey. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, tell us a bit about your track tonight and what you used for your composition and your inspiration for that track.
So inspiration-wise, and probably maybe to answer Alpha Star's question. So I started back in the 80s, actually, embarrassingly enough, with electronic music. So I was really inspired by Vangelis and Tangerine Dream and Eno and all these guys. And I wanted to create something that was kind of along the lines of the Vangelis style orchestral, cinematic type of mood. So it involved obviously a lot of layering, a lot of sounds. I figured with the pandemic having started, I figured I wasn't traveling anymore for my job, obviously, and I figured, I'd have a lot of time to mess around with it and come up with sounds and try to not make it as complex as possible, but just try to make it as orchestral as possible, right? So that's why maybe I went a little bit overboard on the amount of sounds I added, but. Sound origin-wise, so a lot of the effects and everything came out of the bitbox. So just me manually triggering samples. And I know the piano piece came from the Distant EX. Has the Labs soft piano, I think, was on there. Some braids and rings for the main sequence, I believe. Other than that, I kind of forgot. I think I did have one non-modular. I had my Novation Peak in there for the main string section. Yeah.
Wow, you've got a lot going on in it, and from my experience with you, with last time I had you on Piqued, it's been a little while now, but also when we got to jam earlier, I think this year when you're out in California. Hanging out at Frank Martin's house, you brought this beautiful assortment of modules, and your knowledge of them is extremely in depth. And you showed me some wonderful pieces, some modules. One that I've never worked with before, and some of them I've never even heard of before.
The ensemble oscillator.
Oh, the ensemble, yeah.
Remember that? That was nice, and that was wanted to interject that was a nice memory, by the way, the end of that video there when we all hung out on the deck. And
yeah, I was trying to figure out what I was doing when I was reaching over when you were at my
I think you were pulling off those little those little grips. You gave me a handful of those little
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
what they called again? They have a name.
The fader caps.
Exactly.
WMDs. Yeah, I handed you a handful of those. Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I would love that again at Frank's house with the wonderful fresh French bread. Just setting up a modular on the patio there and just jamming. That was so much fun. We should really do that again.
Yeah, Frank, you're always such a gracious host to let us all just show up on your and jam on your back porch.
My pleasure.
It's always a good time. It's always wonderful. I wish we could do it more often. And so, Dave, it's a wonderful piece, and you always have a wonderful melody to all of your compositions, and everything that you have on Bandcamp under the name of Wabi Sabi has a beautiful melody to it and tranquility to it.
Nice.
It has a wonderful feeling to it. It's always positive, and I know you have a history with the Japanese culture. I was curious to know if that has an influence on your compositions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just from the name Wabi Sabi is a Japanese aesthetic term. So I studied electronic music back in the 80s. I graduated from school. I just kind of dropped out of the whole scene and went to Japan and lived there for many years, studying the culture and learning the Japanese tea ceremony and studying martial arts and all that. And so it has a huge influence just in terms of Wabi Sabi, the dichotomy between beauty in singularity in nature and the beauty in the rusticness, or the sabi literally means rest in Japanese, thickness of nature. So in my music, you probably hear that I might have a nice, pretty single melody going on, but also either evolving into or accompanied by very rustic, not well, a rustic noise, an underlying tonal quality that is kind of almost degrades the softness of the music in a way, and that's why I use the term wabi sabi.
Yeah, very cool. It's always something that stood out to me. Having with my experience with the Japanese culture, it's definitely something that I hear in your music, and it's also from my perspective, I believe it's a lot of the visuals that you use, the photography that you do for your Bandcamp page, specifically for the music that you've produced. I think a lot of that influence reflects in your photography as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, wabi sabi is definitely in my photography as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a wonderful eye for composition.
Thank you.
And that goes for your music and your photography. Specifically as when I use the term composition in the sense of framing and the understanding of what goes into a frame.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now we're running a little short on time tonight. So Dave, I don't mean to cut you short unless there's any questions. If you have any comments, of course. But let's jump on over to Clark Harding and check out his song, and we'll talk to Clark Harding afterwards. Rich, please cue up Clark Harding. Clark Harding, everybody. That was awesome. Clark, how are you doing tonight?
Well, thanks, you.
I'm okay.
Good.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone.
Now, Clark, tell us a little bit about the composition you made for Modular Alliance, and tell us about the equipment you used to make your composition.
So that was strictly modular in a fold-up case. I think I don't know how many you use, but the same case I brought for the Piqued show that I played. But yeah, it was all composed and performed one take, live modular. Multi-track recorder, to my chagrin, because my studio wasn't set up. I recorded it on my Zoom little field recorder. Of a couple days, just various takes, and I think it was one of the last takes I did.
That was very cool. And what I was curious, what inspired you to create Modular Alliance, not as the nonprofit organization?
Well, just the idea of community. I love what you do, and Frank, and just how you guys facilitate people together, and really what you guys do, and just to kind of form as a nonprofit, and the beneficials aspects that can be, and just a passion project, just another avenue, creative interpretation, for art, so to speak, live and recording.
Oh, thank you. Oh, sounds like we all inspire each other.
Yeah, we're a great hub of the world, and there's lots of creativity to be had. And yeah, I feel blessed to have such colleagues that we can, collaborate on, share what we're doing, and bounce things off each other's head. And it's just, we're really blessed.
That's a great perspective. I think you're on the money on that one. Absolutely. And it really does take all of us to come together, and as this community has grown and thrived. And then, and I want to thank you, Clark, again for reaching out and asking Frank and I to build this nonprofit organization with you. Small as it still is, but it's still something that because we have a passion for it and we want to see it grow, we've continued with it and been able to produce one compilation so far. And I know that a few people have been very excited about this endeavor that we put together, and some are hoping that we might do a second one. And what do you think? Do you think we might be able to do a second one?
We have the capacities, and we can roll the funds over from this one, and really, for it. And so if it's basically, if we want to do it, but I don't see why not. I think it's a great to see multiple volumes of this compilation coming into fruition in the future.
I hope this is one of many too. We've got some humble beginnings, I think, but I think there's a lot of potential for growth, especially as we branch out our community more. Perhaps we can get some more, maybe some international artists on the next one, maybe.
Yeah, there's so much talent.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Lamel Williams. He wants to know, Clark, how was the percussion constructed for this song?
I wasn't able to hear it, and it's been a while. I know that Akimi's, I think it's the taiko, the kind of the hi-hat, and the I normally use BIA as like a piece in there. I forget what else was in there, but I remember that Akimi's was in there as kind of that. It felt almost tribal to me. hat type clave. And the BIA was probably it, so it's been so long that I forget. But I remember those two were in there, and there was probably another element. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And that makes a lot of sense. Using BIA, Taiko, I definitely hear that. And you are you are a drummer by
Primary
you?
instrument. Yeah.
And how did that? Tell us a little bit about you did I'm blanking on you did a performance recently earlier this year in a concert hall, right?
I haven't done one. Are you talking about the one I did with the strings? That's probably the one you're
Yes.
talking about.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So in Napa we've got at the CIA, which is a culinary school and Center for Wine, Food, and the Arts. And when you guys are in Napa, you should pop in and come in and theaters. They're absolutely beautiful. And I did a party. I did sound for a party. Lena, Aaron Martin. It was a hell of a party, and she had Festival Napa Valley, a big string ensemble piece. Anyway, one of the Festival Napa Valley folks, I was honored, asked me to commission a piece, and just gave me carte blanche to do whatever I wanted. And previous compositions was with a string quartet, viola, cello, and I thought that it was only appropriate as Festival Napa Valley is a classical base that incorporates strings, and so I commissioned a piece. I think it was 8 movements a piece. It was 45 minutes, and yeah, so and then sort out the string section, and it was good. One movement, because modular are always live when you're patching and repatching. It was a great great experience. I love playing with strings live, and pair so well with the modular if done right, and it's with live musicians when possible. And that amphitheater is just beautiful. It's so yeah, it was a fun show I did for Earth Day, and I'd like to do another one. Um,
I hope so. And I hope to make it next time. I do apologize I couldn't make it out to Napa for your show, and next time I hope I can make the trek.
yeah, and I've been slacking on getting down to SF, and I missed Mission soon. I know you guys have been doing some more open mic, so hoping you guys will see my face in the mix as well coming up here soon. Do stuff again,
I hope so too, Clark. It's been a little while since I've gotten a chance to hang out with you in person.
Yeah.
It's always a good time. And maybe I'm sure I can make it up to wine country pretty soon too.
Rough,
You always have to come out here.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. I like Napa. It's a nice place.
Yeah.
I know but I know you got a lot going on your plate. You got your own family going on. You got a lot of, you got your own business going on too. So, no worries. We'll meet again someday soon.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Clark, I want to thank you again for coming on, and I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight for doing the Modular Alliance vinyl listening party, as I guess it was. Well, I wish we could have done it in person, but it's been complicated with everybody. I think it's been a little complicated for everybody to get together in one place at one time. And seeing as since the people even on this record are no longer living in the same areas much anymore, we're a little dispersed here and there. It's a little more difficult now to get everyone together, but at least we have a virtual space where we can all chat for a little bit, and which is nice. And we've had since COVID, since I should say the pandemic happened, we had our friends who are running the Left Coast Lights Discord and Slack chat put together a a, uh, a a weekly chat on a Friday night, which it's been harder and harder for everyone to get together on Friday nights to chat. But for a little while, for at least maybe the first year, there was a good group of us that would get together every Friday night to chat and do like a mental health check and see what we're all up to. And everyone's been busy and things have gotten a bit, I think, more busy for everybody. But it's that's just life, and that's just how it is, and that's okay. But it's wonderful that we all get to come back together in some form and make sure that we're all still creating and being creative people and getting something produced. And this vinyl record was a big endeavor for all of us, and it was definitely a lot that we all put into it. Your opponent, thanks for coming in, man. Good to see you. And hopefully we all I think we're all gonna get another record out maybe next year. We'll see. But it was a big endeavor. It was a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work put into getting it all together. And if you haven't gotten it out to your friends yet, please let your friends know, let your community know that we have this wonderful compilation of 8 different artists that we put together. You can find it on modularalliance.bandcamp.com. You can get the digital album, you can get the vinyl, you can get both together. And it was a lot of fun putting it together. And there's more to come, I'm sure. And each artist has their own Bandcamp page as well. So if you want to hear their individual music besides what you've heard on the compilation, there's plenty more music out there that you can hear. A lot. It really is. And there's a lot of us are still creating and building and doing more things beyond just music. There's so much more that we're all doing together and individually as well. So please make sure to reach out to me if you have any questions or want to collaborate. I'm always happy to collaborate. It's been one of the most unique things that I've been able to participate in, is working with other people, other artists, and seeing what we come together and create. It's always a unique experience. So it's getting a little late over here. It's about 9:15 p.m. I'm getting tired. Sorry, guys. But
Can I add one real quick thing at the end here?
yeah.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the thing coming up at Mission Sense. No date yet, but keep an eye out. I'm going to be doing a all vinyl like DJ modular set of just all modular vinyl.
Whoa.
I don't think I've seen done before actually yet, but I've got a whole collection of stuff I've been picking up over the years, going back a ways. So that's going to be something that's coming up at Mission Sense in store. Probably like a journey, like a 3-hour journey type thing, because it's going to be all eclectic styles, So, and then Malarkey alluded to something earlier. There's going to be a little project that we're going to be cranking out soon, so keep an eye out for that also.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you so much for letting us know.
Appreciate the support from everybody. Love all you guys.
I love you too, man. Mission Sense is a great place. Thanks for plugging it again. I really admire what Brian and Betsy put together at Mission Sense. It's a unique, wonderful space that we really needed for modular and electronic synthesizer music to be expanded in the Bay Area. And hopefully it inspires some other people to open some shops throughout the Bay Area too. As I know there's some other people out in San Jose that need an outlet. And I'm sure there's smaller communities out there, but maybe we'll see it expand and grow a little bit more out there too. That's another wonderful, thriving area right there. And I want to thank again everyone and for joining us tonight. Thanks again to Rich Hogben, who is my Piqued partner and has been for over 3 years now. And we're continuing to do this. And before we go, if you haven't heard Shabalba's new album, she put one out just about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. And it's a phenomenal, awesome album that she's put together. If you've heard her previous work, she's created something even more unique. And you can hear how she's grown as an artist. Shabalba is a fantastic musician, still using just 2 OPZs. And I'm so impressed with what she creates. What she does, I don't know how she does it. It's totally amazing. All right, I better get to bed. Oh, and let's Malarkey needs a link to Shabalba. Let's make sure that I put
Drop
that
it.
up there before we sign off. Let's get that up there. If there's any other shout outs, guys, please say it. Let me know. What else is coming up, guys? Anything else? We got Resident tomorrow night at Noise Bridge in San Francisco. So if you want to go out and see a live show here in the Bay Area, that's a great place to go. Let me get out. There's another show going on, I think on Friday at the End Up in San Francisco. There's an artist named, I think his artist name is Qualifox. I could be really wrong about that, but I think that's his artist name. He's going to be doing a live electronic set at the End Up in San Francisco on Friday night. I'm pretty sure that was what was going on there. Oh, you know what? Shabalba's not on Bandcamp. She's only on SoundCloud. Let's find that. Rich, if you got the link, please send it. That's not. Good Lord. I am failing at computer literacy today. Oh, wait. I think I found it. All right, here we go. There it is. There's Shabalba. Check out our new album, everybody. It's really fun. It's really unique. All right. I better get to bed, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for coming on, joining us for Piqued. Have a good night. Stay home. Stay safe.